Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back on Time Sports Talk. Back for our weekly show. A lot has happened in the last week, but we got some feedback by our number one fan that we need to be funny. So you have a joke prepared. So let's start off by
So
being funny. Go ahead.
I got the funny looking covered. I'm sorry I was born this way. Yes, dad joke. Just really to start off, what do you call friends you listen to music with?
Hit me with it.
Earbuds.
Wow. Wow. All right, there you go, number one fan. There's us trying to be funny. All right.
Earbuds. That's cool, right?
That was terrible. You even searched that up to. I got one. Just forgot it, and the people were utterly disappointed. All right, that's why we're not comedians and we're talking sports. Let's just be honest with ourselves. All right, we're going to start
Well,
with the NBA Finals. That's going to be the bulk of our show. We're going to talk some U.S. Open. We're going to talk some Aaron Rodgers.
I'm playing the Mavericks
Just
thing
putting the,
there.
the doom music back in the background. We're going to talk Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, very briefly, and then yeah, that's
Or,
probably all the time we're going to
or
have. But I woke up today in a sad state that my Mavs couldn't get the job done, and quite frankly, Boston showed them who was the better team all series.
not just the better team, they were the dominant team. They dominated the Mavericks, and the only and I'm just going to be honest here. I think the only reason they lost Game 4 is because they wanted to win at home. They probably will not say that out loud. No one will say it out loud. But it was like, who cares? We win at home. I get it. It's all about a sweep. So you could go back and forth. It was either the Mavericks said we are not going to get swept, or it was Boston who just said, whatever, you can win this one. We want to win it at home.
I'm not going to necessarily disagree with that assessment. I think I even tweeted during the third quarter of game four and said that Boston just say in the locker room, we really don't care about this one and we want to win it on our home court. And yeah, that's basically what it looked like. I thought with how the Mavs looked at the end of game three and obviously their performance in game five, or I'm sorry, game four, I really thought they had figured some things out against Boston, at least enough to make the game a grinder of a game. I didn't expect another blowout of the Mavs on the Celtics home floor by any means. But I'm going to ask you, do you think this Boston team is a potential dynasty in the making?
Everybody breaks out this damn dynasty stuff before it's even a damn dynasty. It's because everybody wants that. Now, granted, Boston is in the lore of basketball and NBA, 18 championships total. That's a lot. But those are from the days of Bird and all that back in the day. Now they had a little bit of a run with Paul Pierce and those guys, but everybody wants to talk about this dynasty. Now, granted, they were dominant in this series. And I just think, and you're probably going to touch on it, I think the Mavericks are a player away from getting this down to where they need to be. And we'll have to see how the offseason shakes out. But I go back to the Boston series before this one. They didn't necessarily dominate. And there were times during the playoffs, people were questioning their heart. People were questioning whether they had the ability to make it through. I realized their big man was hurt for a little while, but I just don't think the dynasty talk shouldn't start until a team wins a back to back championship. Then you can start talking about possible dynasty here.
All right, you know what I'm about to call you out on, right?
What?
your San Antonio Spurs were considered a dynasty and they never won back-to-back championships.
No, but they would win almost every other year. The dynasty talk, though, with them didn't really start until they won that second one. Then you,
If you
then we
listen,
had
my question was, do they have the potential to be a dynasty? That is the question. I don't sit here and say they're a dynasty. I'm just saying, do they have the potential? When you look at their team, Brown is 27 years old in his prime. Holiday is 34. Horford's 38. Porzingis is 28, but I feel like that is an old 28 with the way his body has failed him throughout his career. Tatum is 26, and Derek White, who has one more year on his deal, is 29, so he'll be 30 when his contract is up. And of course, their coach is only, I think, 35. Missoula, which I apologize, I was calling him Udoka a few episodes. Missoula, by the way, I'm a huge fan of his now. I love his answers and press conferences. I love the shirt he wore last night when they're celebrating. He didn't wear the championship shirt. He wore the "I first got to thank God" shirt. And so I'm a huge fan. I'm becoming a huge fan of Missoula. And so I think the potential there is there, especially to win next year. I don't know beyond that because they have key pieces aging, and I think they're going to have trouble unless they pull off a trade to get somewhat younger. But Derek White is going to get older. Holiday is going to get older. And obviously, Horford is pushing 40. I think me and him graduated high school the same year. But you do have a young coach. You have probably one of the best, if not the best, executive in Brad Stevens in the league on the teams he can put together. So I think the potential to be a dynasty is there, but obviously, yes, it does have to be proven.
I am not going to deny there's potential, but it's just like you said, you got to see what happens with the older players. And I know those ages don't sound old in the grand scheme of things, but when it comes to sports, some of those ages can really hinder people because it just your body takes a beating. The NBA is one of those where you're moving up and down the floor constantly.
And your top two guys are 26 and 27, though. So your
Yeah, and
foundation pieces are young.
yeah, I think there's the potential. I definitely do. But once again, their coach is what, 34, 35,
Yeah, he's 35.
35, and you got to see how that works out. Um, because we know after you win a championship, it to get back to the same grind and have the same fire. A lot of teams just don't do that. They don't have it, and they flame out. Yeah, there's definitely potential. I'm not going to say there's not. I just think the way they dominated this series, and we got to see what the Dallas Mavericks are going to do. They, I think the Mavericks achieved more than people thought they would.
Oh,
Um,
yeah,
being
absolutely.
being a lower seed in the playoffs, and just was always. I think we saw Kyrie really grow up. I shouldn't say grow up, but get more mature in his basketball game and just the way he handles things. I think he showed a lot of class at the end of the game, going around and thanking his teammates and all that, even in the midst of getting booed by the fans, which is understandable. But
So back to Missoula, I think he's the next Eric Spoelstra. I think he's going to be the Boston head coach for 15, 20 years. As long as Brad Stevens is there, that's going to be his guy. Just like Pat Riley and Spoelstra are attached at the hip. I think they're going to be successful at a high level for a very long time in Boston just because their
Mhm.
stars are young, and that's always going to put you in contention and in the playoff race. It's going to be interesting to see how they build it. I also think Missoula is creative enough offensively, and obviously that team plays really good defense as well. I think the pieces are there for him to be there a long time. I don't know if the flame out is going to be there right now. I think you get to that point when the expectation is championship or bust every single year, which is now going to be that. But I think you saw that with the Warriors dynasty after winning three championships, and the kind of the expectation was like, oh, damn, it's either we win or it's a failed season. You talked about the Mavericks being a fifth seed and being a lower seed and achieve more than anyone expected. 100%. They didn't make the playoffs last year. And before the Gafford and PJ Washington trade, I'll say that they needed to. There was talk that, not that they needed anything, but there was talk that they may not even make the playoffs, so they're going to be in the play in. And to go to a fifth seed and then you beat who was considered the best defensive team in the league in Minnesota, you beat the number one seed with the MVP runner up in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and OKC, and then you beat the Clippers team with Harden, an injured Kawhi, and Paul George. You really set yourself up moving forward, and you touched on Kyrie as well. Kyrie, I still think he's a Robin to a Batman. I think the skills are still there. He struggled in the finals. I think he's gonna have to exercise that Boston demon at some point. And but the class he showed, you mentioned his teammates. I think you're referring to actually when he went over and shook and congratulated the Celtics and the Celtic coaching
Yes,
staff.
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you said his teammates. So yeah, he waited for all his teammates to get off the floor before he left the floor as well. And he did that while the Celtics fans were being Celtics fans. They're not an extremely high class breed of fan, in my opinion. And don't bring Philly into this conversation. Is Kyrie being booed and all that? And I think at a certain point, you have to appreciate your opponent. Yes, he didn't have a good experience. That stuff was 4 or 5 years ago. Let it go. And like he, it's just time. You beat him in the finals. Next time he's in Boston, don't boo him. Cheer him. He showed nothing but class. He didn't say anything back to your fan base. He even took apparently an inappropriate comment when he dove into the stands that they wouldn't say what it was or who it was. And he didn't ask to get that fan kicked out. If it was LeBron would have been like, get this guy out of
Oh
here,
God!
get this girl out of here. And so,
I can't. He hit me. Said something to me. Get rid of him.
so
That would be LeBron. That's my LeBron imitation.
okay, we're bringing another character in here.
Penalty in basketball anymore. Good gracious. This half court shot they keep talking about, he took almost 5 damn steps.
Yep. They called one travel in that game, and it wasn't a travel on PJ Washington. He jump stopped. He kept his left pivot foot down, stepped through, and made the layup, and they called that a travel. But
Good
Jalen Brown,
gracious, man.
yes, the Pritchard three was a travel, 100%. But Jalen Brown, 90% of the time when he goes to the bucket and he kicks it out, he's already taken 3 or 4 steps before he passes the ball, and they never called him. Like it's,
Yeah,
I
I
know the
just
NBA has different rules of gathering the basketball and this and that. I and don't get me wrong, the Mavericks had their fair share of travels too. Kyrie
no,
traveled.
it's all throughout the NBA. It's like
Yes.
I wish they cleaned that crap up because there's a lot of shots that would not go in because if they were limited to what they're supposed to do and taking 2 steps versus four,
Well,
5, and sometimes 6, why even have a dribble? Let's just carry the ball, you
here's the
know?
thing: is the league doesn't want to do that because it's actually going to slow down the game, and they want a fast-paced game, and they don't want to. And guys are they're just used to it by now. They're not going to adjust, and they're going to complain, and those things right there. So, anyways, let's not get too hung up on the horrible. Uh,
Sorry, I went traveling. I took a trip. I went traveling
yeah,
like most NBA players did.
yeah, pack your bags. So you said I was going to mention this. I am going to mention this. I do think this series showed that Dallas is a piece and a half away. I don't know if it's a scoring piece, but I do know they need to improve their defense. And a couple with that, I think Luca needs to. I know he is going to want to play with Slovenia in the Olympics, but Luca's got to get healthy. Like I don't think you can't say this about Luca that he's a wimp or he doesn't play through pain. That half his body is hurt, and he still did what he did in the playoffs, which is incredible. And
Yeah.
so He's got to get healthy. And on the side of that, and I know people have talked about this and they don't want to hear this. Oh, you're criticizing Luke on this. He's got to get in even better physical shape. The dude he needs to start getting abs and he needs to start getting ripped. I'm not going to say lose weight. He needs to actually be about the same weight he is, about 235, 240, but he needs to turn that into muscle. Um, and he's still young enough to make that transition or that transformation pretty easily. He's going to be 26 years old. And
Let's just be honest. You're calling him fat. You saying he's fat.
he's not fat, but
You
he's not.
calling him fat. You just call Luca fat. That's what you did. You're trying to him and haw around it, but yeah, he's a little bit. He doesn't look like your typical NBA player. Let's just put it that way.
I
Looks
mean,
like the dude you'd go have a barbecue with.
well, if the one European player you can compare him to that made a body transformation and it worked out was Jokic, who was the best player in the league. He was
Mhm.
he had that kind of round mound of rebound type body like Charles Barkley back in the day. He slimmed down, he got in shape, he started eating right, and he took his game to another level. He's a two-time MVP. If Luka goes down there, I'm not saying he's fat. What I'm saying is he's not where he needs to be able to carry the team in the finals. He looked exhausted in game 5. If they would have
Well,
won that game,
yeah, I think he was hurt, and I
he's
think in that, especially when your knee, and as much as he played it off, and as much as he probably got some painkillers and all that stuff, that is a difficult injury to deal with, and he still got that team to the finals. So yes,
well,
I'm not going to disagree. Yeah, he could be in better shape, but I also think it has a lot to do with the fact that he was not 100%, and that pretty much the entire playoffs he wasn't 100%.
but I'm going to say there's a correlation to your physical fitness and injuries as well.
Folks, the coach is coming out.
So the coach, yeah, I'm making the point. I'm not saying he what he did was incredible. I'm not taking anything what he did, but to finish the job, you got to go to another level, and by improving your physical fitness will also help you on the defensive end as well, where he took a ton of criticism, and in that game 3 he was horrible. Okay, he was better in game 4, and so he doesn't need to be a Drew Holiday on defense. He can't be a black hole on defense. All right. So the physical fitness part of that, and then what he did in the last 2 games towards the referees is what he needs to do every game. He needs to. Every star is going to say something every once in a while, but he wasn't the whiny baby. Him and LeBron in today's NBA are the 2 biggest whiny babies in the league. I make no qualms about it. Luka complains way too much. He acts like a spoiled, entitled basketball player. And so he needs to grow up and mature in that part of his game to stop worrying about it and learn how to work the referees into your favor and not just expect it because you're one of the best players in the world. So those
So I think unless you got more to talk about them, I think that's a good transition to whiny, pouting players. Back us open.
all
Oh
right,
my goodness.
that wasn't I wasn't done about the Mavericks.
Okay, I'm going to transition to that once you finish with your Mavericks thing.
All right, because I in the pregame to this, I told you I was going to talk about potential pieces for the Mavericks to add. So you knew I wasn't done, you
You
jerk.
got to remember, I'm old. I forget things.
Yeah, but then when I call you old, you're like,
Who are you again? Who are you? Oh yeah,
call me an a-hole when I call you old. Anyways, is so Potential free agent, and some of these are pie in the sky guys because I don't think they have the cap situation to get them. I think the number one guy that the Mavs would fit would be Pascal Siakam. He's a two-way player. He's a 3-and-D guy. He can play inside. He's a really good player. That would be a free agent signing or a sign and trade potential. He's in Indiana right now. Came from Toronto. He knows how to win a championship. He won in Toronto when Kawhi was up there. OG Anunoby from New York. Sounds like they're not going to re-sign him. Sounds like there's some bad blood between the front office and OG right now. Another good two-way player. And then I think they should re-sign Derrick Jones Jr. Maybe Tobias Harris if you want a forward who maybe is looking for a cheaper deal, who's already made his money, who can score the basketball. I think he averaged about 17, 18 points last season, but he's not the best on the defensive. And this is going to get to my trade proposal here in a minute, but other free agents that if you can't make this trade that I think you should look at, maybe bringing back Dennis Smith Jr. with his athleticism to be a backup guard. Maybe Talon Horton Tucker. Bowl. Yes, that's his real name. Bowl. All right. 7'2", can shoot it from outside, spread the floor, power forward, center combo. And then the other two pie in the sky guys that can score the ball is Miles Bridges and Kelly Oubre Jr. All averaged over 15 points this season, or those two average over 15 points. I think they're going to command more money. And all those guys I talked about are unrestricted free agents. And none of them, because I think anyone that you could target that would be a restricted free agent, someone's going to match. So I think those individuals would be good targets. I know the LeBron rumors are already starting, saying bring him to Dallas, draft Bronny. I don't know how the finances work in that, being that the Mavs are already over the cap. But here's the trade that I've already put it in the trade program on here that it matches, it works with the money, and I think it makes Dallas an absolute contender without breaking the bank on anything. So hear me out. This is a 3-team trade with Chicago and Orlando. Okay. I really like this trade. Chicago gets Tim Hardaway Jr. They're terrible. It's a salary dump. He's essentially an expiring contract. He's not in the plans for Dallas in the future. So get rid of it. Throw Tim Hardaway Jr. The rights to Stenko Barshach, I can't say his last name. They have his draft rights. He's in Europe. He's a center with Lively and Gafford in the middle. He'll never be a part of the Mavericks' future. And Orlando throws in a second round pick. Then Orlando receives from Dallas Maxi Kleber, Dante Exum, and their 2027 first round pick. And Dallas receives Alex Caruso from Chicago and Jonathan Isaac from Orlando. And so you bring in 2 3-and-D guys who shoot a high percentage from deep and in the corners. 2 guys who can absolutely play defense, gives you a big, legitimate defensive guard with Caruso off the bench who will dive on the floor, who I really think that if that was even possible, bringing in those 2 guys would be an incredible. So now then you got Kyrie and Caruso, Luca. You still got Jalen Green. You have Isaac and Hardy. If you re-sign Derrick Jones Jr., you would bring him back. You have Washington, maybe sign the Bowl guy for depth and those things. And then you have Gafford and Lively. I think that is a championship team right there. That is my trade proposal, is that the Mavericks get Caruso and Jonathan Isaac, sending out Exum, Kleba, and Tim Hardaway Jr.
Okay. I don't, it's a lot. That's a lot. So I don't disagree with Tim Hardaway Jr. Probably needs to go find a better situation for him. I was just looking at a couple of folks have talked about, is it Michael?
Who?
I guess he spells his name Michael Bridges.
Miles Bridges
Yeah.
from Charlotte.
So a lot of people are talking about that as a possible way for them to go. And it uses some of the people you're talking about, Hardaway Jr. and all of that. Josh Green, a few others, but they would think that is the type of player, defender and shot maker from the perimeter. I think they do need someone who can play defense, but they also need someone when Luka and Kyrie are off. They need someone to that gap or make that bridge, so to speak, till they get back on, so to speak. I don't disagree with what you're talking about. I think that's a lot to happen, but they're going to have to do something. You hope that Luka's going to stay healthy next year, but they're definitely going to have to do something. They've got to add another piece, or it's unfortunately they'll be up against it again, and they're just not going to be able to finish the deal. And if you measure it anything against this year, when you only win one game out of the finals, then you weren't necessarily up to par as being competitive, in my mind.
Yeah, I know that trade is a lot of information and a lot of moving parts. When you start adding 3 teams into a trade, you're going to have that. The money works in that trade. You're giving up. You're not really giving up any major assets other than that you wouldn't want to give up, other than maybe Kleba. You still keep an emerging role player in Jalen, or not Jalen Green. I'll just say Green because in Green, and Hardy is progressing as well. Maybe you have to give up Hardy in that deal to make it work instead of someone else. But if you bring in guys like Caruso and Jonathan Isaac, who are good locker room guys, who are good defenders that can switch in any situation, that hustle, that hit the ground, that shoot well from the perimeter. Because I think one of the biggest problems when you did have guys off, now you're asking Derrick Jones Jr. to make it knock down threes. Jonathan Isaac can do that. He was over 52% from the right corner, or the left corner if you're looking at the goal. And then he was like above 35% from the left corner. You have guys that can attack the basket, who aren't afraid, who are hungry to help you get over the hump. I think those 2 guys would be really interesting in the Mavericks uniform. But the Miles Bridges thing, I haven't seen the chatter on that, but that's a pie in the sky guy for me. Averaged 17 points last season, can play some defense, knows,
Let me give credit to who came up with this. It's Eddie Batar. Hopefully, I'm saying his last name. Senior staff writer at Fadeaway World Sports, who who has this up there. I was just reading about it, and that's who he said. And you're calling him Miles Bridges, but his first name is spelled Mikal. I thought it
you're
was Mike
thinking of,
Bridges.
okay, so you're talking Mikal Bridges in Brooklyn, right?
McCall. Yes.
Yeah, so we're talking about 2 different guys. There's Miles Bridges in Charlotte, who's going to be a
Yeah.
free agent, and then there's
Yeah.
Mikal
No.
Bridges in Brooklyn, who
Yeah.
who would be a good fit. I do agree with the Mikal Bridges as well, because Mikal Bridges was really good in Phoenix, and then he was in that deal for, I forgot the deal Phoenix made that traded him off. But yeah, that Mikal Bridges would be a good fit too. So
And that's like I said, that's what Eddie. Make sure I'm saying his name. All cool guys are named Eddie Batar. I hope I'm saying his name, but he's saying you would give up Tim Hardaway to the Brooklyn Nets, Tim Hardaway Jr., Jaden Hardy, Josh Green, Olivier Maxence, I'm not sure, and 2025 first round pick swap.
it would be hard for me to give up Green in that. I'll be honest. But all right, you tried to segue once to it. The U.S. Open. All right. DeChambeau gets his second U.S. Open. I think he was drinking out of the cup yesterday, from what I saw from the videos. But you want to talk about
Wouldn't
whining?
you? Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you?
I
If
would.
you won it, I'd be. Yep. I
I would
would
have
have
been
filled it
showering
up.
in whiskey. All right.
That's it.
But
Yep.
you were talking about whining. So who's whining? Who's a sore sport? Who?
Oh,
What?
McElroy.
Oh,
It's
Rory.
just Rory, it's, oh my goodness. The way he pouted. First off, you lost. And I get it. He hasn't won a major and I don't know how long.
I think
But
it's
it's
like
been a
10,
long,
11
it's
years.
been a minute. It's been a minute.
It's been a decade.
And he is usually one of the people who will stay back and answer questions, but he just was like, I'm out. I'm not going to talk to anyone. I'm not going to congratulate anyone. And he just was gone. And just the look on his face of sitting there at the table watching Shambo hit that putt, the one that he had just went out there and missed. It was just, at first you felt sorry for him, but then when he didn't talk to anybody and he just pouted, I'm like, dude, what the hell, man? At least go out there and congratulate him. And now where is he from again? But he is from, where is he from again?
It's not Ireland.
Oh, he's from the UK. He
I
was
knew
born,
he's
yeah, he was born in Hollywood, UK. Um, but the thing is, Rory, come on, dude. Man up. You lost. I get that, but go out there, show some sportsmanship. Because the thing is, how many freaking endorsements does Rory have? You see him on every other freaking commercial when you're watching golf. He just has all these endorsements, and I think he really hurt his brand just because he walked off. I'm gonna say it like a little bitch. That's what he did. He missed a putt and he walked off like a little bitch. And you got to
well.
stop that, man. You got to man up. I understand. I get it. It's frustrating or whatever, but that's part of the sportsmanship. And golf, more than any other sport, is supposed to be about that sportsmanship. They shake hands on the last hole. They tip their cap. Now, what I did love about DeChambeau, and I love his name because you could make a song out of that. Boom, 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 Shambo. You going Shambo?
Stop.
So
Just
the
stop.
thing, yes, I like it. I think it's
It's
gonna be a number one hit.
terrible.
But the thing is, the emotion he showed was just fantastic. And the thing is, if you've watched his career over time, his personality has changed. And now he's more of a fan favorite. And just the fact that he went around letting people touch the cup and just talking, high fiving the fans, all that stuff, that's what golf needs. I'm not saying Happy Gilmore, but I'm saying they need that emotion because that was one thing that Tiger, even though it was regulated quite a bit from Tiger, he still had when he made those long putts back in the day in his prime, and he just got up there and the crowd went wild. I think that's what golf needs.
I,
And
I'm going to say this is that I'll get back to Rory, but your DeChambeau Tiger parallel here is completely different. Tiger, in it, especially early in his career, uh, he wasn't very fond of the crowd. He was actually more of an asshole to the crowd. We never really acknowledged him. Now, the emotional part of it, of the fist pump and all that stuff, yeah, that's there, and I understand the parallel you see in there. They have way two different ways of handling crowds, and Tiger, not until his late 30s, was really interacting with the crowd in a positive way, and as far as personable type of situation. And when you're as big as Tiger, you don't have to. I am a DeChambeau fan. Part of the reason I love the long ball, and the dude hits it longer than anyone else on the tour, well, the Live Tour, because he's not a PGA golfer, which is going to be here in a second. But I do love his energy. I do love his. He seemed like a guy who he works hard. He's down to earth, and he's relatable, and that's what kind of separates him. And he's good. And getting back to Rory here, He bogeyed 3 of the last 5 holes. And so he really lost that championship on, I think it was 16, when he missed that 3-foot putt. Because the putt on 18 was a very difficult putt. It was about a 3 or 4 inch breaker. We got to go aim 3 or 4 inches left of the cup, and he ends up missing it and not leaving them. But the one on 16 was a straightforward putt. He just pushed it to the right, I do believe, just like we do on our rounds we play on Sundays in our own personal father-son tournament, which I'm the reigning champ. But
Why do you think he didn't even shake Bryson's hand and congratulate him?
he wasn't out on the course still playing. He was in the clubhouse. Now, when DeChambeau lost the PGA and he was in the clubhouse, yeah, he came out and shook uh, the winner's hand and was happy for him and showed that side of him. I think Rory, for the last decade, has felt the pressure of not winning because everyone said he was going to be up there with Tiger because he won so many so early in his career. And so he ends up going on this very long drought. He, I don't want to say, I want to say he lost the championship versus Bryson winning it because he had the lead. He bogeyed 3 out of the last 4, and he had another collapse. It was very similar, not similar, but it was in the ilk of how he collapsed at the Masters, and he's never been able to recover at the Masters and win a Masters tournament since then and really be the guy that fulfilled his potential. He's still one of the best, golfers in the world, but he left. Yeah, it was a crappy move. It was a shitty move on his part. Pardon my French. Ultimately,
Being a little
not
bitch.
he's not obligated to do it. He's not con-
Obligated.
contractually.
It's being a man, dude. You got beat by one stroke, and it's golf. Golf, there's a certain gentleman part of it, right? There's
I
supposed
just
to be this certain part of sportsmanship.
I don't disagree. I just think there's a part that there's a weight on his shoulders that I don't think we can fathom. Like it's been 10, 11 years and he had that tournament won and he choked it in the last 3 or 4 holes. And that's devastating to a guy. Like it wasn't like he birdied the last to tie it and then DeChambeau birdies the 18 to win it. When
Do
just
you think it's going to be devastating if the Edmonton Oilers lose the freaking Stanley Cup to the Florida Panthers? Do you think it's going to be devastating? But you know what they're going to do? They're going to stand up, they're going to get in line, and they're going to shake the winner's hand. And that's the thing about it in sports. You see it in football. Now, I'm granted, there's times when people do this stuff and they act like a little bitch. And that's what I'm calling you out, Roy. You acted like a little bitch. You should have at least shook the man's hand and said, Congratulations. You can be pissed off or whatever, but what do we try to teach kids nowadays? Sportsmanship. Win or lose. Sportsmanship. And that was it was an epic failure in sportsmanship by Rory, who has a brand. If he was an unknown, someone that people don't know who he is or whatever, but he has a brand. And the fact to protect that brand, even if you just broke it down to that part, go out there, shake the man's hand, and say congratulations. And
here's
then go home and cry in your damn Irish beer or whatever the hell he's drinking.
well the thing about you're talking about his brand and protect his brand. The man's made so much money he doesn't have to worry about that now. Like he has generational wealth in the bank to where he doesn't have to
He's
cater.
getting tore up on social media, and we know
But
all
guess
it
what?
takes is something stupid.
He's still
And to
almost
me,
a
that was
billionaire.
stupid.
Like or whatever his net worth is, he's not worried about that. He's not worried about his
So what you're
image.
saying? Let's take your little analogy here. So what you're saying is, if I am a billionaire or a millionaire, I don't have to have sportsmanship.
I'm saying you don't have to. You're not worried about it because you're not worried about making more money because you've already made it.
It
I'm
is
not.
the sport that made you a millionaire, a multi-millionaire. Respect the sport. Respect the people you play against. Sportsmanship.
You.
Goodness gracious.
I agree with you on the sportsmanship part. The type of coach I was, how I played the game, okay, and you know how I've approached it. But in this particular case, I'm not excusing what he did. What I'm trying to just, I'm trying to have a little bit of,
She was a little bitch.
I'm trying to have a little empathy that we don't understand what he's gone through trying to win another major these last 10 years with the expectations. All eyes are going to be on him in the Open coming up, and see how he handles it. I'm
But you
maybe
know what?
I'm
He's
where,
going to catch a lot more crap because he acted like a little bitch.
and
And I
guess what?
guarantee
If
you,
he
those,
wins a major tournament, if he wins another major, they'll forget about it. In 3 weeks, people will forget about this. So
if he wins, and how long's it been since he's won? 10 years, something like that?
as far as a major, yes, but he's still like where he copped out where I thought he should have did is he should have talked to the media after. If you don't want to shake Bryson's hand, if you want to throw a pity party, that's fine. But you should have talked to the media before you left, like most winners and losers do in those type of things. But I think where the next argument and the next interesting phase of this is you just had a live golfer win a major. So this PGA live back and forth rivalry of which tour is better, which one's going to survive. They have this tentative agreement that they did a year or two ago. What is the tour going to look like in moving forward? I think this is going to entice more top guys to go to live because we all know the biggest difference is it's a contract based golf tour where you sign a 10-year contract worth 150 million or 100 million, and you've just ensured your family's well-being moving forward. And on the PGA, people that defended the PGA have crossed over now to live. So I think that's going to spark a very interesting debate when some of these live guys continue to win these majors. And I also think, you know, they're going to have to figure something out about the points and the world rankings and things of that nature because Bryson DeChambeau is not eligible to play in the Olympics because he doesn't have enough points in the world rankings or something like that. But
Right.
Bryson DeChambeau is one of the best golfers in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to figure that out. And the PGA needs to figure it out, and Live Tour need to figure it out. I know there's a lot of controversy where the money came from and who's backing it and all that stuff. But guess what? Money talks, and the only color that most people care about is green and ensuring the future of their families and their kids and things of that nature. Because if you don't win on the PGA, you're not getting paid unless you're a star and you're getting endorsements. And on Live, you can ensure you're getting paid. Maybe you only make $1 million a year from Live because you're one of the smaller golfers and it's a 10-year, $10 million contract, but you just ensured your family's got money to live off of, and then you increase it by winning on the tour and stuff. So I think that's an interesting debate to get a little deeper in the future. So U.S. Open, yes. The last thing, did you see the hole in one that the guy made to make the cut? Did you? Did
No, I did not,
So
actually.
he is on his 18th hole on Thursday. I think it was Molinari is his name. He's at 7 over. He has to get to 5 over to make the cut, and he's on a par three. He aces it, hole in one. One of the most incredible shots I've ever seen.
Go back and watch that. I didn't see that for some
Yeah,
reason.
it
I'll
was
be
an
honest.
incredible, and the guy announcing his
And to do it to make the cut, huh?
yes, it was his final hole. It was his 54th hole, and is that right? No, it was 36 hole. It was 36 hole. 54 is after 3 rounds. It was his 36 hole to make the cut, and he aces it like a 200 plus yard par three, hits on the fringe, bounces rolls. As soon as it hit the fringe, I was like, that has a chance. And sure enough, he aced it. And one of the most incredible shots ever to make the cut. So take a look at it. Enjoy
Yeah,
that.
we played golf this weekend, and you had a par three and hit the pole,
I did hit the
which was
pin.
which was pretty cool.
Yep.
So
And I converted the putt and birdied. It was one of the best shots I've ever hit from about, it was a par three, about 100. I think we were sitting about 156 out or something like that. And nice little 9 iron in there and hit the pole, and it fell about 2 feet from the hole. So, yeah. Yeah. I like golf.
yeah,
All right. While you're looking
yeah.
that up,
So
oh,
I just watched it, and you know what? I saw the other guys playing with him go out and hug him and congratulate him. They didn't act like little bitches.
oh,
They didn't act like little bitches. And
all right.
Rory, I'm calling you out. You're a little beach, and you need to come back and get out of the UK. And I'm going to yell at you. You're a little beach.
I don't even know the
There you go.
accent you're trying to talk in right now.
I don't know. Maybe I'm taking Sergio Garcia's accent a little bit further than it would go.
Oh man! All right, let's move on from the U.S. Let's we I think we're past. We got everything we could out of that. I'm gonna just briefly football story. It's been on the Carton show. It beat this story to death over 4 days. Aaron Rodgers misses mandatory minicamp. Robert Sala, the coach, says it's an unexcused absence, but they knew he was going to miss because he had something planned. No one knows what he had planned, but so he took the fines. Aaron Rodgers, Jets missing minicamp. Is it even a story?
This isn't new for Aaron Rodgers, is it? I don't think it's new for him. I think he did that when he was with Green Bay a few times because he goes on a little hiatus where out and I don't know in a Zen tent
His
saying
dark
things
retreat.
and yeah, or something like that. Which I don't fault the guy. He's should he be there? Yeah, he should be there. Because he's considered the leader of the team, and that team is banking on him being the savior. And how'd that go last year? Wah, wah, wah. It
Fourth
did not
place.
go well. Yes. And so did they get another quarterback? Are they still going to back him up with, I can't even remember his name off the top of my head right now.
They traded Zach Wilson.
Zach, where did Zach go?
I think they traded him to Denver.
Okay. But
I don't know who the
yeah,
backup is,
yeah, that's going to be interesting to see. I'm going to have
but
to look
yeah,
at now.
if I was sitting here like this is a non-story, and y'all are saying it's even a non-story, but for the last 4 days, even going into today, or 4 business days, I should say, like they were still talking about him missing. Now I know that Carton is a huge
Tyrod Taylor.
Jets fan, so
Tyrod Taylor's going to be the backup.
that's a lot better backup than Zach Wilson.
Zach.
So
Yep.
not I don't think it's a big story by any means.
Yeah, I don't either. There's lots of players end up doing this, and of course, for that city, everybody gets a little worried. And I don't blame Jets fans for being. You're a Jets fan, okay? So it's been worse than what us Cowboy fans have dealt with. It's just,
Yeah, they have the
you
butt
know,
fumble.
and it's he's not just a star of the team; he is the team.
He's also 41, 40. This isn't like CJ Stroud in the Houston area, like
Right.
missing mandatory mini camp in his second year. This dude's been in the league 20 plus years. You saw guys like Brett Favre do this.
Yeah.
No pun intended
Far
there.
right.
But
Yeah.
so I think it's a non-story. I think the Jets are a very interesting story this year, which we'll talk more football as we get closer to the season. Of course, quick Stanley Cup. Does Florida close it out tonight?
Yeah. They're my pick. I think you picked them too, right?
I did pick them at
So
the beginning. Obviously, I changed that when I thought the Stars were going, but no, I picked the Stars. I picked the Stars originally. You
yeah,
picked
I
Florida.
mean, it's once again, it's a 3-1 series.
Edmonton whooped that tail though last game, 8-1.
Yeah, but how many times we keep seeing this in we saw it in basketball. We've seen it in people don't want to get swept, and
8
they come out
to 1.
with. Yeah, that is
That's a
pretty
50-point win
amazing.
in basketball.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. But it's almost like the Mavericks beat Boston in Game 4, right? It's
Yeah, we'll
not gonna
see.
get swept. It's like, mofo, I ain't getting swept. So they come in and they beat that
If
ass. But
if there is one sport that I think, and I don't know if it's happened in hockey, but if there's one sport, and I know it's happened in baseball, being down 0-3, the Red Sox, but it's never happened in a World Series. If there's Hockey is that sport because it's such a bounce here, a bounce there, a little bit of a quarter inch this way or that way. We talked about that when the Stars were eliminated by the Oilers. A difference of 4 or 5 inches, the Stars would be in the Stanley Cup final. But the Oilers, with Connor McDavid leading the
so
way, I think because of how fickle the game is, they could make a comeback and maybe force a game 7. But
so in hockey, because I
no,
just looked it up, there
mm,
has been one team
oh, well, there has
come
been.
back from 3-0, and that was very recently the 1942 Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, that was just like a couple years ago.
Yeah, 1942 since it's happened, but it has happened
That was
in
like when you
hockey
were a teenager, isn't it?
when you were, yeah, so you were just a twinkle in my eye. Like I say, who's your daddy? There you go.
You really bring that on the air again. You got to get another default comeback, folks. That's what he says when he ain't got nothing else to say. Like
Hey, it works, right? Who's your daddy? Who's your daddy?
Jesus, Jesus is my
Hey,
daddy.
easy now. Um, so yes, it has been done, but they
Uh,
would have to do it something that is almost more than 100 years almost. We're talking 80 something years since it's been done, but it has been done in hockey. And of course, that's when they didn't wear helmets. Goalies didn't wear helmets. They're getting hit. They didn't have no teeth. So, but they still had sticks and they played on ice. Just for you folks who don't know.
and that to death, ain't we?
Well,
Oh
you can
man.
be if you have a stick.
Speaking
So,
of getting beat to death and stories that I don't think are really stories, I told you we're gonna get this fatigue, and I'm already fatigued of it. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, the women's version of Magic and Bird, even though Angel Reese is not on anywhere near Magic Johnson's level.
yeah, you just hurt their legacy by saying that.
I'm not the only one who has said that. As far as drawing interest, I guess you can make that parallel. Caitlin Clark goes to the rim in this particular situation. They're playing the Chicago Sky again. Reese knocks her in the head, flagrant one foul. I 100% think it's a flagrant one. You would get that call any headshot in the men's game, women's game, college, high
Yeah.
school. It's going to be a flagrant foul. But I do think it was a basketball play. No, nothing. Do I think she may have taken a little extra joy knocking Caitlin in the head? Probably, because they have a rivalry. But I don't think it was intentionally trying to knock her out or trying to be dirty. She hit her with her forearm. It wasn't an elbow or a closed fit. You know, I think she knew she wasn't going to get that block. She said she was going for the ball, but she looked like she was going for the ball. But there was nothing. It was a basketball play. There's nothing crazy about that.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm not going to say it wasn't a basketball player, but this junk just keeps. I just wish they would just play basketball. Let Caitlin Clark bring the fans there. Now, it's a two sides to the story, though. The more controversy there is, the more people may be interested in it.
True.
And controversy brings news. Controversy brings interest. If they were just playing basketball, would there be as much interest? So there's two sides to that. Is that even though we say a lot of it is just it's unnecessary or whatever. Which we totally agree with when I talk about sportsmanship. But I also think there's the side of it that hey, we like a little controversy because it's making interest in the game. Because and the bottom line is, ain't nobody watching that game if Caitlin Clark's not playing. Everybody's tuning in to when Caitlin Clark is playing. Now, because, like you said, we've got this little thing between her and Angel going on, everybody is watching that game to see what happened. Tell you
Yeah.
what, and I watched a little bit of it, not just the highlights, I watched a little bit of it. Caitlin is starting to find her shot again. She's starting to find her game again.
Yeah.
And I think her uh, level of play is fixing to take back to where she was when she was playing in college,
Yeah.
because
We'll
I think
see.
she's starting to find that comfortable place of where I am. Because I think when she first came in, it was new, it was different. She's dealing with all the backlash and the hate from the players, not the fans. Fans love her.
Yeah. That's evident. Like when she goes to Washington and the previous game, they're in a stadium that holds 4,000, and then when she goes, they're selling out a 20,000 seat arena. But yeah, not much of a story there. There is a bigger basketball story there probably, but we're up against the clock. We want to thank y'all for making it all the way to this point. If you did, shout out to Tel Valhalla Project, Mission 22, Camp Hope, and of course, Deblin Health on your side, supporting the mental health crisis we got going here across the nation and
Well,
here in Texas. On
and
Time Sports Talk, I am the remix, Casey Schedule. He is the original Eddie Schedule. We love y'all. Signing off. Peace. We're out.